Hey Chris, I see the good question that you asked. We'll be happy to talk about it. So did the did the speech that Powell was gonna give leak? Did something come out early, or what's going on? Because the market sure took off, and we do have a nice transition, as I said before the pop, that we really do have a nice transition on the hourly chart. We'll see. Daily, we pulled in a little too much. We broke the trend line, as you can see. Well, that's not how you draw it. You go to the lowest point as long as there's no price interference, and you connect it. Basically, that's kind of the trend line. Basically. And so we broke it already, but we didn't break the trend. This is a minor pivot, but under the 20, so it's gonna be tough to see what it's gonna be interesting to see what the market does tomorrow, if we produce any follow through or not. Yeah, I don't know if something leaked. The market feels a little bit unhealthy, or something not right about it. Pullback wasn't good, the weekly doesn't look so good, the monthly doesn't look so good, so not sure. I have some of the TQQ, as I said during the day, but we'll see. And I said it's just one. If you stop out, you stop out. But if it works, it's a swing play. So we shall see. Interesting day today. I think what made it difficult for me personally today was the fact that it started off easy, and the things that you could like rely on, like for example the BBIG level 2 was excellent, and then all of a sudden just completely changed, fell apart. Grab level 2 was pretty good too, and then all of a sudden it just completely stopped. Not gradually, not a little bit at a time, completely stopped. So it was, I don't feel bad about giving back. I ended down $900, and so that's like a 5-hour reversal from the top to the bottom for me, because I was up I think 1700 at the open, and I ended down 937, something like that. So it just got really difficult. The only thing that I caught that didn't mess up, like that didn't, was the ZH, and it was a little thing. It wasn't such a big play, but the 15-minute breakout there, and then the add, I meant to add to it at 53. I would have still made money because I was able to exit at 57, but I couldn't add. It popped quickly. So that was like almost it. Looking at the gaps, the charts, I don't feel like I missed out on anything. The TRCH, TRCT, that was good. TCRT, that is, as a breakout. I think that was good. Probably made a mistake there. And snow was decent, but it wasn't an easy play. I mean, by any stretch of the imagination. And then the shorts, did they exist? I don't know, because everything just got bought today. So I don't feel like today was easy at all. But again, the difficult part for me was that what I was doing, the things that looked reliable all of a sudden became unreliable, and I'm talking about the BBIG and the grab mainly. And then after that, I did the MEGL climactic buy setup, but that was, I already knew it wasn't such a good climo, and I didn't lose anything on it, but didn't follow through. I don't think I did. Did I do anything else? I got the VIPs triggered, but that's as a swing. got some Neo, which isn't very good. Got some TQQ, and I got some U, which Ifan mentioned timely, as a swing. We'll see. We'll see. But more, more or less, not a whole lot today. The Frey worked also on the day trading side. Yeah, the Peloton was good. Yeah, the Peloton was good. I forgot about the Peloton. That was like one of the rare ones that worked. I mean, that dropped, and there was a setup on it, but I was scalping the BBIG, which I mentioned verbally on the mic. I really couldn't get to it. I don't know where it was, on the 2-minute chart or something. A nice little breakdown that worked, but that's about it. Interesting market, but I'd love for it to get better. I mean, I just would love to start getting the setups again. It's interesting because nobody sometimes you feel like you have a good idea of whether the market is higher or lower. I certainly feel that way most of the time, but right now I don't really have a great idea whether the market is lower or higher longer term. The daily looked really good, then we pulled back hard. The weekly doesn't look so hot on the Qs. The monthly doesn't look so hot. So it's kind of tough. But the tougher part is there's the weekly trend line, but the tougher part is the day trading. It's been tough. I mean, I don't know. We'll see. September and October bad for stocks. Yeah. Historically, October, correct. But we'll see. We also, I don't know if what we did last year in September, October, but I know the year before, that's when we topped out. But again, I don't remember last year. I remember the year before, 2020. So last year, we had a huge month in October. September was bearish, pretty bearish. There it is, really bearish September. Is that 2021? Yeah, that's 2021. And October was incredibly bullish, and that was the top. Now should be the top. November 22nd. Bitcoin topped November 9th. A little bit ahead of the market. I noticed also there was absolutely no movement in Bitcoin today. No reaction to the pretty big pop in the market. Absolutely no movement. There might be just a total disconnect, or I don't know what else it would be. So we are in a similar situation. I feel also historically each market cycle has a minimum of 3 waves or more. We only had 2 waves in this cycle. The third wave is the longest and largest, and I feel like we are about to start the third wave. If the daily buy setup triggers, it already did. Oh, and fails, then it's a short. Yeah, right. That's what I said today. If this move up ends up failing, because we already popped, if we end up failing, then that should do it. If we end up failing on this move up, but I wasn't expecting this big of a move up, meaning it's kind of hard to imagine the market failing tomorrow, reversing all of this. It's hard to but it could also take a couple days. We might end up with a red bar tomorrow, and then next week a drop. But yeah, for sure a line in the sand now, for sure, right here. If we break under it, all out bearish. You know why? Because then the daily will be in a downtrend. Check it out. Let's just pretend tomorrow we get a red bar. Let's just pretend, okay? We get a red bar, and then the day, because I don't think, unless Powell says something totally unexpected, I don't think we're gonna actually reverse all of this the last 2 days in one bar. It could happen. We've seen it numerous times in the past. But if we get, even if it's just 2 bars, we get a break, well, guess what? We would have a lower high right here, lower than the previous high, and a lower low. This would be a lower low, okay? And then not only that, but it would also, it would confirm the weekly sell setup that we have, which is on the other side of the 20 MA. So, okay, so if we were to fail on this move up, it's an easy call. It's an easy call. part of me doesn't want it to fail on the. I mean, honestly, I don't care. Whichever way, it's fine. But I'd love to see better trading environment because it's been tough. I mean, some days and some weeks. You know, the first week of August, I think it was the first week, the week that I did the Tizu. It was a $55,000 week. The Tizu wasn't Tizu? I thought it was Tizu. Sizu. No, was that the first week of August? Yeah. Of course, 30,000 came from Sizu, but you know, so sometimes we have amazing periods, but you know, last couple of weeks it's been mostly a drag. Mostly. Friday was great. Last week, I think that was like my only winning day, but it was good. And this week has been Monday. I was up 5k, but I gave back a lot. And today down. Failure is a close below. Yes, failure is a close below. So just there you go. You have the formula now. We break under this. That should do it. I mean, on this bullish uptrend, should be over. Okay, if we break and close, correct, because sometimes you get crazy volatility and then you end up taking it out by a little bit and then goes right back up. So yes. Would I swing short? No, I would start to look for setups short, correct. I'd start to look for, you know, a lot of setups, but the point is, it's not would I swing short or not. I would probably start focusing mostly on the shorts, but the point is that would determine the market direction going forward. It should and would determine the direction from here on out, longer term too. So for the next weeks, months at least, if we break. Now, I don't think it's gonna happen, but who knows? And like I said, I do have the TQQ, so from that point of view, I would rather the market not drop, but I don't really care. I just would love to get back to how it was. It was much easier to trade. We are, you know, we're removed from earnings season, so it's a little bit harder that way. But I'm not, you know, I'm not so much. I don't care so much about the gaps as much as follow through. I mean, if looking at the gap ups, show me some stocks that really trended today, that worked. I'll show you some. TCRT. I have about 70 gap ups on my charts. About 70, maybe 70 plus. TCRT, which I called, but then I cancelled. TCRT worked. FIGS, but I don't really see a great entry. Where's the good entry? Where was that good entry on it? Show me. I mean, where is it? I don't see it. There's a breakout, but I normally wouldn't play something like this. It's not very good. Big stop, 200 above. It trended up. Worked. So FIGS, Frey also, which we considered, but again, show me the good entry. Where is it? It's right here. I'll show you the entry. It's right here, over the base, right here, towards the very end of the day, right here. I mean, there was only 30 minutes left for the day, end of day. So there's the Frey, there is the TCMR, there's also the Snow, which we considered. I didn't think it was that great. Worked a little bit, not a lot, but that's about it. I mean, almost out of 70 plus. Yeah, actually, if you include the China stocks, that's another. So 12, and that's another 24 charts. And the China stocks did move up a lot, but right at the open, they popped and didn't look back. So it was hard to catch them. It was hard to get in on. We did the ZH, and that's about it from the Chinese stocks. But like I said, they all popped at the open, and it was like, where would you, like Fudu closed right at the high, but where was the good entry? Here there was an entry, stopped down under the red bar. You know, not bad. It worked. You know, but not much. Not a whole lot. Can you buy? Yes, you can buy it. You can buy the recording. Oh man, for sure. You can contact customer service, email them at t3live.com. I mean, info@t3live.com, or go t3live/pristine. Should be pristine. I could be wrong. Pristine Education, maybe. There it is. And it's on that. I'm not the master, but there it is. Learn more. And I just gave the class, actually. I just taught it last 2 weekends. Okay. All right. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about multiple time frame alignment. So in general, okay, so I'll give you some rules first. The question was, for those that will be catching the recording later on, the question is, can you talk about multiple time frame alignment a little bit? Maybe review a 15-minute buy setup and what the 5-minute needs to look like before you can take the play, something like that. So okay, so that's the question. So here's some rules about multiple time frame alignment. Okay, the first rule is, I mean, it's not a rule, but if you want to make good money, you want movement. You need movement in your direction. In order to have movement in your direction, you want to have a daily chart that looks like it's powerful. It's breaking out, it's breaking down, it's a gap, the whole sector is moving, it's ending the trend line, whatever it is that you like. So the first step is define what it is that you like on the larger time frame, meaning define what the catalyst is or should be that you look for, that you'll be looking for. I can give you several, a strong trend on a larger time frame, extreme relative strength or weakness compared to the market, okay, a gapping stock, that's like number one for me, gapping stocks, any kind of failure pattern, a buy setup or breakout, or a really nice daily pattern triggering, those all would be fine. I focus on gaps because we have almost an endless stream of stocks. When you focus on gaps, every day you find gaps, especially during earnings seasons. So I personally focus on gaps. Okay, so that's the first thing that to look for before you even consider, or I consider that to be part of multiple time frame alignments, because the larger picture has to be in sync with the smaller. Before you consider the smaller time frames, the intraday time frames, consider the larger time frame, the daily, mostly the daily. Okay, sometimes you have a breakout on the hourly. I mean, on the hourly, not so much on the daily. That's fine too, but most of the time, I'm using the daily chart as my strategy time frame. Okay, and now it's a matter of, you say, well, I'd like to be in the stock because I really like that daily pattern, whatever it is, right? Or I really like that gap. I'd like to be in it. Now let's see if we can get into that stock by finding a high quality intraday pattern. In order to find a high quality intraday pattern, take a sip of water. In order to, not sure, Christian, not too sure. It hasn't been brought up. We'll see. But that will be the next one for me to reteach. In order to find a high quality intraday pattern, you want there to be multiple time frame alignment. Alignment among what time frames, or between what time frames? Mostly the time frame where you find the setup and the one time frame lower. Obviously, the time frames surrounding your pattern. So if you find the play on this side of it's not a square, on this side of the rectangular, then you want any time frames on this side to be in alignment. If you find it on this side, right? So what that means is usually the one time frame larger and the one time frame smaller. Okay, but most important is the time frame smaller. So in the morning we're looking at the 2 minute time frames. It's hard to find, especially at the open, to find any kind of multiple time frame alignment. So you just take it off the 1 or the 2 without necessarily paying any attention to the larger time frames if you're trading the open, like really the first few minutes. After that, you will have to start considering multiple time frames. Okay? So if I find the play on the 2-minute chart, not on the 1, not the first 15 minutes of the day, maybe on the 2-minute, I make sure that the 1 minute is in alignment, and I make sure that the 5 is in alignment. Okay, but I primarily want to make sure that the smaller time frame is good. If I find a play later on the 5, I make sure that the 2 or the 3-minute, whichever time frame you use, is in alignment. Now, in the morning, you're mostly relying on the power of the gap, or whatever it is, the larger time frame that you're playing. You're relying more on that to move the stock, hopefully in your favor. Okay. Later on in the day, okay, the gap is nice and strong, but it's all, everybody that wants out had the chance to get out. So the power of the gap is gonna be less, is not gonna be as strong as it is in the morning. So it becomes even more important to find multiple time frame alignment. In the afternoon, I try to look at the 15-minute chart because it paints a clear picture. If you look at the 5 later on in the afternoon, check it out. Let's say you go to 5. I don't even know what the stock is doing. The chart would have to be really big. This is a big chart for me to really understand what the stock is doing. But a normal, like 4-inch chart or something, 5-inch chart, is not going to tell you enough, give you enough information in the afternoon to be able to tell what the stock is doing. So normally after 11:30 or so, I go to 15-minute chart. So take a look at the Futu on the 5 versus on the 15. Here it is. Now I know what's going on with what the stock is doing. I can see the whole picture. It condenses the data and it cleans up the chart a little bit by going to a larger time frame. Okay, so I go to the 15, and now I need to make sure that the 5-minute is in alignment. And the issue is, if the stock is basing at the high of the day, then everything, it's in alignment because it's basing at the high of the day. Once it takes out the high of the day, then it's gonna be above resistance, above the moving averages, the rising moving average on every time frame that's smaller than the 15. So that's not the problem. The problem is when it pulls back, when you do a buy setup. That's when when it's not at the high of the day. That's when you want to make sure there's alignment. Sometimes even a base. If it's not at the high of the day, I'll give you an example. Snow. Let's just say, there's the base on the 15. You want to make sure the 5 looks good. Why? Because a lot of times, on the 5, it may have already went through the 20 and is now under the 20. So let's take a look and see what the 5 looks like on snow at like 1 o'clock. Jeez. Hold on one sec. So here it is, 5-minute. And 5-minute was okay because it was above the 20. But sometimes that 15-minute base, right here, the 5 might look something like this. I'll show you. Okay? The 5 might be the pullback. Here's the pullback, and then the base, and the 20 was moving up. Let's change color. Go to blue. 20 was moving up, and now the 5 looks like this. And you're trying to play it as a breakout when it's actually under the 20, or there's lots of resistance here, whatever. So even if it's a base breakout, if it's not at the high of the day, you want to make sure that the smaller time frame is okay. Now, what what does it mean for the 20 for the 5 minute? What does the 5 minute chart have to look like before we can take a play on the 15? Well, it that we just want to make sure a couple things. First, when a stock pulls back on the 15, it usually, not always, goes in an all-out downtrend on the 5. So if you look at the 5 minute and it has lower highs and lower lows, and then here starts to move up as the stock is about to trigger on the 15-minute chart. Let's say here's the 15. That's the buy setup on the 15. I'll use these charts as kind of a whiteboard. That's the 15. Okay. So this is my whiteboard. And that's the 5. If you're playing the 15, you want to make sure, you see how at the same exact spot that the 5 was, the 15 was triggering long, let's say it was right here, same time, the 5 was hitting, rallying back up into a declining 20 and into resistance. So this is an example of a play that you actually wouldn't want to do, okay? Because the 5 is not in an uptrend, and or it doesn't have to be in an uptrend, but you can't be rallying into the declining 20 and into resistance on a stock that's in an all-out downtrend. So first thing you want to make sure is the 5 looks good when you're playing a 15-minute pullback, or if you're playing a 5-minute pullback, you want to make sure the 2-minute looks good. Now, if it's into a declining 20, normally you want to pass on the 15-minute buy setup, because oftentimes you take it and it fails. And if it doesn't fail, if it doesn't fail, goes up, it will rarely just keep going. If the 5 is not in alignment, it will usually go up and then maybe give you another base or another pullback. And then if the 5 broke, on that move up, broke the downtrend, then sure, you can do the next pullback right here, especially if it's off the curling 20 MA on the 5-minute. If the 20 MA also was looking like this on the 5, and now you have a W pattern on the 15. Or if you better than a pullback, if you get a base instead of go sideways, and now you can play the base breakout. So okay, got it. Now I'll show you the 3 scenarios that I've drawn in my trading plan some 15 years ago. They still apply today, but I'll show them to you in a sec. Now I just want to say one thing before I forget. It is okay if we're playing a pullback on the 15, it's okay for it to be in a downtrend on the smaller time frame, or it's okay for it to be rather under the 20 MA on the 5 and still play it. Okay, that's okay. But as long as it doesn't have lower highs and lower lows. Sometimes on the 5, during that pullback on the 15, you know what the 5 looks like? It's just a grind. So basically, small red bars like this, it's grinding lower. So if it's like so, and it triggers on the 15, the buy setup pops, and then you get the pop right here on the 5, no problem, you can play it. You can play it. You don't have to wait for a secondary entry. Okay, you don't. The only problem is when you have those pivots, and especially if the pop is happening into the declining 22. So if that's the case, then you let it go on the first entry and you look for a secondary entry. Here's some examples for you. So let's say we're looking here at the smaller time frame. Okay, we're looking at the 5-minute chart. Okay, we're looking at the 5-minute chart. So if the 5-minute was in a downtrend, how does the downtrend end on the smaller time frame? It can end through a sell setup failure. This is called a sell setup failure. A sell setup failure means, just so we're all on the same page, sell setup failure means this is a sell setup when the stock rallies in a downtrend and you get a counter rally, and then it comes in and makes new lows. That's when a sell setup actually works. But sometimes you get the counter rally and it starts to come in, but doesn't reach the prior low, and then it pops. That's a sell setup failure. Okay, So if you get a cell setup failure, right here, you see it? See where the handle is? The hand? It's right here. You get the cell setup failure. You can immediately play it over. You can immediately play it over the pivot because it will have triggered on the 15. So it will be the break of the trend on the 5 and the entry on the 15. No problem. You can play it. Or if you miss it, then you can look for the next lower high. Or both. So you get the cell setup failure. If it pops and then comes back in, you can do the first SSF, cell setup failure, immediately above it, above the pivot high on the 5, or you enter on the first higher low. I mean on the next pullback. Does that make sense? If you have a cell setup. So if you have a cell setup failure, if you have a SSF, cell setup failure, two options. You can enter on, if you have a cell setup and the cell setup fails, I should say, if you have a cell setup and the cell setup fails, you can enter immediately. Hold on, you can enter immediately on cell setup failure. So above 5-minute pivot high, or look for the next pullback. Okay, so that's the first thing. Chris, so the new high on the pop is the failure. Correct. The new high on the pop is the failure. The negation, the break of the pivot, the prior pivot high on the 5, that's each one of these is pivots. The break of the pivot is called the cell setup failure. Why is it a cell setup failure? Because the cell setup, if it's not a cell setup failure, it would have taken you down to the prior low. Okay, so but if it fails to go lower, the nice thing about a cell setup failure is you get two things in one. You get a higher high once we take out the prior pivot high, that's a higher high, and you get a higher low, all in one fell swoop. So this is a higher low, higher than the prior low, and right here it's a higher high. The goal is you always want to have, before you play long, you always want to have, so the goal, I'm just going to write it down, type it into the room, is to have one higher low and one low higher high on 5-minute chart before you play the 15-minute. So if you get a cell setup failure, you can play right away over that pivot, because then you have a higher high and a higher low. But what if you don't get a cell setup failure? Meaning, what if this cell setup, you see it, actually worked? It made new lows, and then the stock, which is, doesn't always happen, it's rare. So here's the cell setup, here it is, it worked. And then the stock proceeded to go back up and break the trend that way. Now, let me ask you a question. Is this considered the break? Is this considered a cell setup failure? Right here. When we broke, right here. No. A cell setup failure is when the stock fails to reach the prior low. Because then when it fails, you have a higher high and a higher low. Okay. Now let me ask you this. When the stock pops like this, that's when it triggers also on the 15. But over here, when you're considering playing it long, let's say right here, how many higher highs and how many higher lows do we have? Okay, how many higher highs, how many higher lows? Talk to me. At that point in time, right here, when you're looking to play it on the break of the prior pivot, how many higher highs, how many higher lows? One higher high, zero higher low. Exactly. And therefore, you cannot take the play. No higher low. Exactly. You cannot take the play. So if that's how the downtrend, so the goal is we don't want a downtrend on the 5. We want one higher high, one higher low. Okay? So if we don't have a higher high, higher low, then what you do is you let it go and you only do it on the next entry. A pullback, or if you get a base and a base breakout, that's automatically a higher low, a base. The bottom of the base, that's like a pivot. In fact, it's what's the base is like multiple pivots, same area. So you don't do it on the first entry, you do it on the next entry. Okay, if it's not a sell setup failure. So if we go back over here, this is not a sell setup failure, so you can only buy the higher low, the first higher low. Okay. All right. Now the third example is rarer, is more rare. You see it at the bottom. So sometimes what happens is, I'll just before you read it even. So you have a 15-minute stock. You have a 15-minute pullback. Here's the stock that you're looking to buy. Starts to fall pretty hard, almost mini climactic, into the 20 MA on the 15. Okay, you start to look at it and you say, wow, I'd love to get in it here, but how? You can't, because the bar, the last red bar, we play once the prior bar's high gets taken out, and the last red bar might look this might be this big. It's too big. You play above it long, right here, stop below it, and then you target the high of the day. You don't even have 1-to-1. You barely have 1-to-1. Okay. So what you do is you're looking at the smaller time frame at the same time. If the smaller time frame was downtrending, like so, you don't do it because you don't have higher high and a higher low. But on that last drop, the 5-minute will stop grinding and will start to print multiple red bars in a row. Check it out. These are supposed to be red bars, okay? Like so, something like that. Multiple red bars in a row. Now, if that's the case, as long, if you have a channel and then the stock falls below it, you start to get a little climactic. That's not a good enough of a climactic to play, but into the rising 20 on the 15, then yes, you can just play it off the smaller time frame long, above the last bar's high, stop below it, and the stop hopefully will be under the 20 on the 15, and you don't have to wait for a higher high and a higher low, because you have a kind of a mini climactic acceleration into a perfect location on the larger picture on the 15. Then great, let's just pick it up off the lows, be aggressive, and by the time actually the stock goes up to the prior high here, you will already have an R or more. So don't wait. Those are kind of the three main ways that the smaller time frame ends its downtrend. It either ends it through a sell setup failure, which is most common, through a higher low, which is less common, or through a climactic drop, which is even less common still. Okay, got it? So those are the ways, that's what I look for. It doesn't always look picture perfect. Yeah, let's take a look at the cues. But that's basically what I look for. Okay, now should we look at the 15 and the 5 at the same time so we're not confused? What was I gonna do? Oh, I was gonna do cues and then cues, but I'm gonna shift. I'm gonna have this be on the 15. Here's the 15 on the cues, and let's take a look at the 5. And so on the cues, all right, now don't forget, trading is an art also. You have to kind of see things clearly. So remember how much I kept saying, that's a nice shakeout. That's a pretty nice shakeout, right? That's a nice shakeout. You already have like a double bottom there. That's pretty nice. Now the issue about the SPY setup today, it's not that it was ugly. It wasn't. It's that you don't know if you're gonna get any follow through or not, because that's been that's been the issue lately. No follow through most of the time. Now in this case it follow through. Okay, but let's say here's the buy setup on the cues. First, you have to like it. Don't go to the smaller time frame and start analyzing the smaller time frame if you don't even like it. Now that's not a bad buy setup, but it's too sharp. You see the reversal here, too sharp. You want usually nice 45 degree, like so. So smaller bars, you know. Okay, so normally I would pass already for that reason. Here it is, but I would already pass for that reason because I don't, you know, it's too sharp. Okay, now it starts to base. Okay, now, okay, if it can continue to base, then over the base long, stop under. Okay, instead it breaks down. That's ugly. But then the breakdown turns into a big bottoming tail bar, which is a shakeout. So it's getting better. But the problem with with shakeouts is it makes for a large stop. Now my stop was going to be here initially, maybe under this base, under the 20. Now it would have to be down here, way below the 20. Okay, so it makes for a large stop. And then so you say, well, my entry should be right about here, stop right here, and target about here. That's not good enough. That's maybe 1-to-1, assuming it really, really worked. So I only liked it as a swing, not as a day trade, which I did. I have 1,250 shares of the TQQ, not the Qs. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the 5. Okay, so this is the big drop in the Qs. We're matching, we're matching this. That should be it right here. Big drop in the Qs. Okay, so first things first. We said if the stock is on the smaller time frame doesn't have lower highs, lower lows, you can play it long. Doesn't have to be above the 20. I already said that. Remember when I said that? You doesn't have to be, if it's just one red bar after another. The problem is most of the time you go in a downtrend on the smaller time frame when you have a pullback on the larger time frame. So that's when you have to do these extra stuff that we talked about. But if it's just multiple red bars, you can just play it long as soon as it triggers on the 15, disregarding the 5, because the 5, not disregarding the 5, but we don't have pivots. We don't have lower highs, lower lows. So really, as soon as it triggers on the 15, you can be in it. And so in this case, it would have been probably, well, we can tell where, over 317.62. So it would have been over this bar, so over this green bar. Now, is that ideal, with an overhead 20 MA that's starting to point down? Probably not. Probably won't go. It's most likely it won't just pop like so. It'll probably pop a little bit and then drop and then hope that it doesn't fail on you. So most of the time, you're better off waiting and then maybe getting the breakout. So here it is. And sure enough, sell setup now, it's failing, by the way. I mean, it didn't fail. Here it is. And then now if we go back above the 20, but sell setup did come in a lot. This is when you want to see it fail. It drops a little bit, and then right away it goes back up. Then it would have been perfect. Okay. That's not good. Now we have the lower highs, lower lows. So you see what I mean? That's a pivot. That's kind of a pivot. So now we really need to clear that mess. And so here it is. So the entry basically long right here. It's not ideal because your stop is down here. Big stop. So something like this, if it was not a swing play, I would pass. It's too big of a stop. Of course it worked and then went way up eventually. But most of the time, there it is. Basically. You can't enter sooner. The alternative would have been to enter here on once the 15 triggered, because the 5 didn't have the lower highs, lower lows. So there is the first entry right here. Okay, right where right here. Then the second entry would have been over the base, but again, the second entry as a day trade I would not have suggested because it's too big of a stop. Didn't go, and then eventually actually came right back down to the support area, and then it popped again, and then it didn't look back. But that was towards the end of the day. I mean, we're talking last 30 minutes of the day or so. So pretty sloppy. We've seen better. Yesterday we did the AZN. So AZN 50. Wasn't it AZN? I thought it was the AZN. Is this the 15-minute chart? So here it is. AZN 15-minute buy setup. To tell you the truth, I don't even remember what the 5 looked like. Let's take a look at yesterday's trend. Okay, so here it is. This is an example of when you don't have lower highs, lower lows. You might say, well, what about this? Isn't that maybe? But it's not. It's just a grind. Here it is. It's just a grind. In this case, it triggers long. You can do it. Regardless of what the 5 minute looks like. So triggers here. Just do it. It's fine. The trigger should have been over 34. If you really like it, that is. If you don't like it, then don't do it. So it would have been over this bar's high, over that little green bar's high. Okay, there it is. That's the entry. It's when you have lower highs, lower lows that it's a problem. Okay. And notice it didn't like rip right away. And there's another entry, base breakout, but then you weren't too far from the target basically. But okay. The best entry was the sell setup failure later in the afternoon. Correct. Yeah. But it was also, it was a little sloppy today. It worked way better than expected, but it was really sloppy. I mean, that's the truth. On the Qs, the thing that was nice about the Qs is the hourly chart also, because you had that curling 20 MA. Here it is. I mean, see it, but it even looks better on my other platform. So here's the hourly chart of the Qs. That's pretty. That's really pretty. Okay, that's why I don't think we'll fail. But the issue is we don't normally. If you look at the daily, back to the daily, we don't normally, don't normally get this kind of a pullback, deep pullback like this, and then go straight back up without some kind of a shakeout first, without maybe a pop, a red bar, So we got the pop, a red bar, and then the day after that, maybe a pop again. We get a pop or a gap. Then yes, but we don't normally, you don't pull back this much and then break the 20 and then go right back up and continue higher. So that's why there might be an attempt to, there might be a shakeout tomorrow. And this is why I'm saying, as long as we don't break under this pivot right here, then I would, it would be, I'm gonna still hang on to my Q's position. Okay. And if we get a doji bar or red bar tomorrow, then the day after would be the key. Monday would be key, not tomorrow. Now, what if we get a pop tomorrow? We get another green bar. Then you will have missed the entry if you didn't get it. If you didn't get in, you will have missed the entry. Then what you would be hoping for is to get another base or or pull or a red bar at least right here, and then you get a red, let's say you get a red bar after the pop. Let's say we get another pop tomorrow, and then you play a 1 2 3, which is aggressive. It would be better to get an attempt to go low, like a lower high. It'd be better to get either a base or an attempt to come in like so. Okay, maybe 2 3 red bars or just 2, and then the day after that, like Tuesday, Wednesday of next week, boom. Then it would be then it would fix the problem. It would, that deep pullback will have been completely dealt with. But anytime you have a pullback the way we have on the Qs, deep like that, and that broke the 20, it's always really aggressive to play long, to take that kind of play. Okay, so I'm expecting to get some kind of a counter action. I mean, like some kind of a red bar, either tomorrow or at some point. But I'm certainly not expecting to get a smooth move right back up, like a green bar here, a green bar there. I'm not expecting anything like this. I'm expecting some choppiness, some attempt to get to shake you out if you're a long, if you have a long position, if you're long the market. Okay, we'll see. And then ultimately on the weekly, we really need to have, the monthly is just so tough. It's just so tough. And the weekly, ultimately, we don't normally rally with a super declining 20 like this, meaning if we're gonna be bullish going forward, right, we normally have to go sideways here, allow the 20 MA to turn up, before we're ready to end the downtrend and transition higher. So I mean, it is just, this is the toughest market I have ever seen in my 15 years of trading, because it just hasn't set up right. The bottom was just super difficult. I wasn't even around when we bottomed. I think that's when I was on my time off on PTO. So this is not, I mean, there's no way for me, even if I was, no, I was here, but in early July I wasn't, July 12th. So this is when this was my last day here. I mean, that's just, you know, that's, I would never try and guess that this was the bottom, and it was. I did call the Qs long over here, over the red bars high, and it triggered on the TQQ, triggered the next day. But I mean, you see what I mean? That's really tough the way we bottomed. Really tough. So nice uptrend, and then nice, you know, deep pullback here. Not so nice now. Now it makes you question a little bit. So the next couple days will probably be key. I'm not saying they'll be easy, but they will probably be key and determine the direction going forward. Okay. So yeah, I just hope we're patient enough. I mean, because sometimes I'm just, I just want to walk away. It's so boring. It's been. So it's like a waste of time almost. Alright guys, I'm gonna step off the mic. Good talking to you as always. Hope you enjoyed the discussion, and I will speak to you in the morning, okay? Thanks again, and we'll talk in the morning. Have a good night. Take care.